Hello and welcome to the 6 Plus show, a podcast for your wargaming and 40k needs. Hobby talk, tactics, tournament reports, lore and much more. We have it all. Please welcome your host for the evening, Tom.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and twisted sons of the Night Haunter to that 6 Plus show. I am your host, Tom. I have just about recovered from a weekend of gaming, and I am joined tonight by my good pal Lee. Say hello, Lee.
Hello, Tom. How you doing?
I am very well, thank you.
You notice I didn't do the hello, Lee there?
No, you didn't. Well, it's not necessarily your thing, is it?
It's more of a Chris thing.
It's a Chris thing. You're carving out new space for yourself.
Exactly. I definitely don't need to mimic him.
What have you been up to, Lee? Anything exciting?
I haven't been. I think last time we spoke, I'd accidentally bought loads of Chaos Knights.
Yes, you had.
So I've been having a lot of fun. I've built a lot of those now, and I've painted the big Abominant, which has been a really cool project.
Yes, it looks really cool.
I'm at the stage. Yeah, I should put some up. We'll get Chris to put some up. What I'm missing at the moment is all the fun bits. So I've only done the initial bit of the Volkite Glow. I've only done some of the transfers, and I like to go fairly heavy on those because I think that'd be quite cool.
Oh, definitely on Knights, yeah. And I think a Knight's one of those things you can just keep coming back to, isn't it? You can just keep adding stuff.
Because each one is such a centerpiece in itself that you can get a lot out of it. So that's been sort of my hobby progress. I've been writing a lot of lists, sort of trying to see how far you can take the dread mechanic. Seeing what kind of crazy combos that are out there that aren't just the ones that are going around all the sort of competitive groups already, because that's no fun.
No, for sure. It looks a cool book, right? What's your cool assessment? Book. What do you think about it?
Unfortunately, I think that the best thing is either herb tracks with one or two big knights and loads of small knights. Yeah, which is probably what I would run in the first event. Just to get a feel for it, because I think that having those extra wounds that herb tracks gives you,
it's
the
amazing.
Warlord trait is ridiculously good, which is you can ignore any modifiers to your profile, but not if you get damaged. But that's if something says, reduce your weapon skill by 1 or something like that. Then you can ignore that. You ignore any modifiers to your hit wounds or damage rolls. So I already love that when I have that in my Thousand Suns with the orrery. So it's getting that on a knight. So you might want to wound and hit Bellicor, for instance. Might want damage for Death Guard, which comes up a lot if you're doing a sweep profile, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then ignore any modifiers to your charge and advance rolls. So again, no tangle footing a knight. That sort of thing. You can move over a crater. Yeah, exactly. So it's all great stuff. The one I think is a lot more interesting, but unfortunately probably not quite as good, is the Infernal Household, the Korvax. Because it really does help you overcome one of the major limitations of knights, which is terrain and or other models. They've got a TCP strat where you can take either one big knight or two small knights and pass through terrain or models as that wasn't there.
Yeah,
which I think is quite terrifying.
Potentially huge. Yeah,
what I would like to do.
That's one of the big weak spots.
I don't know if it's out yet, but there is going to be a White Dwarf edition that has Disciples of Bellicor with a knight in it. And you can potentially do that with two things because they've already got a psychic power to let you move through. Stratagem, I think, to move through things that wasn't there as well. So you can just have the knight do it and Bellicor do it or something cool like that, which would be sweet.
That'd be very cool. Very cool.
That's my initial assessment. But honestly, I haven't played them, so it's really hard to say. Unfortunately, the best answer is probably 14 of the new War Dogs.
Yeah.
But having built
feels like that much obsec count as 5 is... It's very good.
Yeah. When I played it in Leicester last year, the Leicester GT, I was playing my Thousand Suns then, and I just couldn't trade for OBSEC. So even by the time you sort of get 4 expensive models on it, it wasn't enough, and it's tough.
Yeah.
And to get rid of sort of 12 to 14 moves, depends on if you're herb tracks or not. That's tough.
It's very tough.
Doing that 14 times. I mean, it does bleed, sort of bring it down, but
Yeah. No, it looks like that combined with the fact that the dread. Eventually, you can follow the dread's path or whatever it is. Your enemy doesn't get obsec. That's a very strong. I think it's 10-4
as well. Yeah,
that's a strong 4-5, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you've got obsec,
and even if you don't have,
just mad.
Even if it's irrelevant for you to have War Dogs at that point, because your big knights still count as 10 models.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And they're so big, you're not getting, unless they're sort of Brimstone Horrors or something, you're not getting 10 models on an objective at the same time as a knight anyway.
Yeah, No, it's very cool. I'm really interested to see how it gets on. I certainly know that some Chaos players I know who've been in hiding have suddenly chirped back up, and that to me says that it might have
some play. I think it's always one of those things, right? That it's either in some games you win, and in some games you lose. It's 40k is effectively a giant game of rock paper scissors anyway. Yes, it is. But this is like the biggest rock, isn't it? So if you come into scissors, you'll smash them to pieces. But if paper comes, then you've got absolutely no chance. So that's exciting.
Very nice. I myself, I've not hobbied much. I painted a clan rat today. Look, here he is. Little guy.
Oh yeah, nice. What's that forming part of? A new expanding Skaven army?
It will be Skaven. Yeah, I've decided when the Skaven book comes, I'm going to do Skaven because Chris wanted the Echoes of Whatever box because he wants the Sylvaner, who look lovely.
Oh, they're
Skaven
incredible.
Were the other half of that, and I was like, Skaven would be fun to do.
Yeah.
So
they play into your sort of style as well, don't they?
They have the sort of things I like. Yeah, and
do they have the hero hammer that you enjoy? That's my
bit. I think they do, but they have the silly, janky, but also they have quite a sort of blow yourself up kind of vibe going on, which I think will be quite fun for Age of Sigmar. So no, I think they'll be quite anarchic. I've been playing as them on Total War Warhammer actually, and that's partly where this has come from.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't know much about Skaven. They're always really popular though. They're one of the. Are they one of the old world fantasy?
They're very old. Yeah, they've been around forever. I remember I inherited a whole bunch of models off a lad who was sort of getting out of Warhammer when I was very little, and there was a bunch of Skaven in there, and I was like, oh, these little rat men are very cool. So they go a long way back. I don't know how. I think the model range is a bit old, showing its age a bit, but the new Deathmaster in that box looks really cool.
So have you got the new box coming?
I have. Chris has bought it, so
you're splitting it. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm splitting it with Chris, so I have the rat half of that coming my way at some stage.
Is it a new book as well?
Yeah, there is a new book coming in summertime. So it's the usual Sigmars. So that'll be good.
Sigmar's going to become a thing for us, isn't it?
I think so. I think that's where we're heading. I think it's going to be fun to do. I've got obviously my Gravelords are ready to go now, having been out and they've
been painted in a week.
So, having been
tasted blood in the same week. They've actually been used in anger.
Yeah, exactly that. So they're all ready to go. And with this, I think I'll take my time a little bit and just build them up more slowly. But it'll be nice to have them in the background.
Happy days.
And today, what we'll be discussing is two things. We'll be discussing, in the latter half of the show, we'll be discussing the ins and outs, pros and cons of taking on-meta versus off-meta lists to tournaments and what the sort of ups and downs of that are and our experiences with that. But first, we'll be starting with a very off-meta experience.
It's on-trend off-meta.
Yeah. Which is my weekend just past, where I went to the Goonhammer Open for the second time running, and had an excellent time running Chaos Space Marines, specifically Night Lords.
And at the same time, becoming the number one ranked Night Lords player.
I have become the number one ranked Night Lords player in the UK, so that's all right. Thank you. I tried. Philip something can.
What I enjoyed most, you showed me the leaderboard, and the points are so low.
So low. It's like it is the lowest. I mean, not to give too much away, it's the lowest ITC points I've ever scored at an event because they've gone in straight at the bottom on my
I mean, comparatively to the one other Night Lords player, you're beating him. So
there we are. So we're laughing, and a very good time was had. So I mean, we can get into that. I'll let you take the lead on the questioning. Just to get my ITC battles up and remind me what happened. Yeah,
no, that's good. Let's start by sort of a little bit of a venue overview. Where was the event?
Goonhammer Open is a Nottingham girls' school. Yeah. In Nottingham. It's quite a nice, fancy building. Yeah. It's got a canteen off there where we had lunch every day. Ample parking.
That's good. That's always my first one.
Yeah, I know. Nicely organised. Nice big hall. Loads of space. Yeah. Never felt kind of cramped, and they were working sort of in collaboration with the Factorum lads and ladies. So they were up and they were taking care of us with sort of little mini cafe and all that stuff.
Happy days.
And terrain and whatnot.
And then what was the terrain situation? Was it set?
It was very much. It was the sort of LGT style stuff.
Yeah.
And it was maps of that ilk. Now, they were slightly different as much as they didn't have like literally measured out like it must be this far, this far.
Yeah.
You had to kind of map with, eyeball it to here, and that worked great. To be honest, that made it quicker and easier. And a lot more of their maps, they went with like a little 4 stack of crates right in the center.
Yeah.
often sat on an objective.
Which the objective quite small, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, and it was an interesting one. I liked it. It meant sort of some movements directly through didn't work, and it also meant that line of sight got quite interesting with the buildings and that as well.
That's good.
So it was good.
You hear me complain a lot about how we only ever have ruins that infantry can walk through. I don't think it's a game that's heavily skewed to infantry, regardless if they're troops or not, but just the infantry keyword. And I find that's not that interesting. So it's nice to sort of see some other types of terrain, even if it is just obscuring that you can't move through. But those crates are quite good because they don't take up a huge footprint and you can stack them.
Exactly.
So the problem is, like, I've got one of those old-style Imperial Bastions, which does effectively the same thing, but it's got this huge square footprint. So by the time you hide behind it, you've lost sort of 6 inches of movement.
Yeah.
So nice to have those crates. Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Yeah, no, it was good. I think it was a decent setup by them, and they'd sort of developed it and polished it since last time.
I would like to go. This time I couldn't. I was on a stag do, so having different kind of fun. Exactly. Yeah, no, had a great time. Had a great time with those guys. So that was a lot of fun. But then, just I guess for the viewers, the millions of viewers, just remind us what you took. The list.
For the millions of viewers, it was a Night Lord's patrol backed up by a Night Abominant. So I've got it was the big Chaos Knight going out for his debut.
The new one with the tentacle arms.
The Psychic Knight, that's right. And he can give himself a 5 up, feel no pain. That upgraded him to have no re-rolls against him to hit wound or
Blessing
damage.
Of the Dark Master.
And eventually, 1, 2s, and 3s to hit miss, which is also great.
Yeah. Did you find that those were useful buffs?
Yes, definitely.
I've not taken that for my list, so that'll be interesting.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, so, no, they both came up big several times.
I have got the 5, and I should add that.
I think what I would have liked to have put on him with hindsight, I gave him exploding 6s in melee, which was fine, but actually I should have if I was already buffing him up defensively, I should have given him the -1 damage against stuff under strength 8. I think that would have been nice,
the ramshackle.
Just to really finish the job on the being hard to kill. So he was great.
Yeah, so
mine is so rough and ready looking compared to yours.
Mine's
I've got a lot
definitely
more
battle ready, although it's not finished, but it'll be fine for this weekend. So what else was in the list? I remember some other big juicy units I'd like to get into.
The patrol, we had Obliterators.
Every good Chaos Space Marine unit.
So Nash Obliterators, we had a 10 stack of Terminators with 7 Melters. We had
the Lee Churchwood method.
Yeah,
which I love, by the way.
It is very Lee Churchwood, yeah. A 9 and a 6 of Warp Talons.
And the 6 for the sake of R&D if you need it?
So I didn't use R&D at this event. Maybe I should have done. The 6 was just to leave that option open.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's good list design.
I think, one of the takeaways from this is definitely that I suspect instead of a Knight, more mission play, including 6s of maybe Raptors to do that would be good. But that wasn't what this was.
Yeah, Raptors are a little bit cheaper as well, aren't they? You don't feel so bad using them for an R&D.
Yeah, exactly. They're quite nicely cheap actually now, Raptors, I think. And then 20 cultists, a lord, a very killy lord with killing fury, the claws of the
special
black
talons.
Hunt. Yes, it's very slashy. Can get up to 11 attacks on the charge, re-rolling all his hits and wounds, exploding 6s to hit, strength 5, AP 3.
Does he work? Can you get prescience and everything else on him too?
Yeah, you can put all that
whatever else.
Yeah. So he can be extremely killy, and he had a few good games where he'd just go in and blend or something, and then die because he's fragile.
Yeah.
And
still
the sorcerer who was sort of helping to stitch the whole thing together with Delightful Agonies and Warp Time. But actually, another lesson from this, I swapped him to Prescience from Delightful Agonies every game. And,
really?
was definitely
Prescience is better. Yeah,
was definitely using Prescience more.
If you've got multiple sorcerers, Delightful Agonies is one of the things I put in next.
Yeah,
but
and
not
you could probably make a case for 2 sorcerers, I think, in this list.
Yeah. I mean, you had a second one, you had a Knight.
I did, but he couldn't take the Hereticus, whatever it is, discipline.
Yeah. So was that everything?
I think that's everything, yes. I think that's everything. So that's the gist of it. It's not tons of stuff.
It isn't tons of stuff. And
it's quite elite.
460 odd points is quite a lot to sink into something. And that's how I feel like my army's going to play as well.
Yeah. And so it was very hard hitting, but it didn't have tons of stuff, didn't have tons of utility.
Yeah.
And as we'll see in some of the games, that obviously does impact it eventually as well.
Now, as I've mentioned, the millions of listeners, A subset of those millions is going to be at least 10,000 Night Lords players who want to learn all about the specific Night Lord stratagems and how they were used. And I also would like to know, so if there's any key points throughout the games where you can sort of highlight any of those particular shenanigans, then that'd be great 100%. Fun as well, because they have got some great stratagems.
I think they've got some of the best. And that's the fun thing with them. The fun thing with them is how good the stratagems are. Yeah. And you desperately want CP and you want to muck around with jank all game with them. And there were a few moments in the games where that was big, so I'll make sure to come back to it when it's relevant.
That's one. Well, what was game one then, Tom?
Game one. First thing with game one is that Mikey of Hellstorm Wargaming, who was live streaming the event, came and asked me if I wanted to be on stream because he knew I was taking Night Lords, and he was like, "Well, let's get Tom on round one because he won't be on a win streak after that anyway. So this is the time." And I was very game for that, and my opponent, a chap called James, was also keen for that, and James was an absolutely wonderful chap who was running Orks, and he had Gazgul, he had a couple of the kill rigs, he had some sort of gun wagon things. Quite a lot of boys and beast snagger boys running around.
Mix of the old and the new stuff then.
Yeah, exactly. And it was beautifully painted, beautifully converted.
Was it Goths? I guess it must have been.
He was running Goths, yes. It was Goths. And we played on Tide of Conviction, which is actually one of the slightly stranger missions in terms of layout and design, but is a really good fun mission. And this was an excellent game. I mean, the gist of it was we were both sort of hitting each other really hard on one flank.
Yeah.
James had taken Psychic Interrogation, Raised Banners, and Stranglehold, and he scored okay on his secondaries, but it mainly got away from me on the primary. And I sent the knight up one flank where it was having a great time until it hit one of these beast boss on Squigosaurs.
Oh yeah, they hit you hard.
Which absolutely whomped it. Didn't kill it, but whomped it for about half its health in one go before he died. Because there's like a strat for +2 damage against like a vehicle or a monster for them on an already very killy hero. So I was like, oh goodness, that hurts. I think I'd attacked him with the Warp Talons because in my brain I was like, I better go with the Warp Talons because otherwise he'll interrupt and kill the Warp Talons.
Yeah.
But actually he did the opposite and just interrupted and smashed the knight for one instead. And then the knight stumbled on a bit further before dying. But the big moment came on the other flank where the Oblitz had come down and put not as much damage as I needed onto some stuff. They'd whiffed pretty badly. I think I rolled 1 damage for both the goes at shooting.
This is something that's worth pointing out. So Tom and I you'll hear us wax lyrical about obliterators all the time, but they really only work if you're running Iron Warriors, because the stratagems they get allow you to be a lot more. I mean, it's not perfect, but allow you to be a lot more consistent in the results that you're going to get from those random flash metal guns.
Yeah, exactly that. And obliterators are a swingy unit. They can be world-ending.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you get that 3 damage twice with some high AP, you can absolutely ruin things. But in this instance, they didn't quite put the dent in the first try, so I needed more time. And I had a kill rig closing in on me on one side, but then James called a war, as you should at the moment. He'd been very patient. This all kicked off turn 3. We'd had quite a cagey opening, couple of exchanges, except for the far left flank. And Gaz came yeeting out from round a building and made a re-rolled 10 charge into the obliterators, at which point it was like, oh no, I'm done. That's me done. And it was one of those calculated gambles, I think, on James's part. Because I think broadly with the Knight and the Oblitz having both started to struggle, things like Warp Talons had gone in and done harm, but were being sort of whittled down by that point. It's quite hard for me to trade well into the Orks with the weight of bodies that they have.
Yeah, that's why the Oblitz are so good, because there's so many high quality shots potentially.
Yeah, and they can turn it. They can just remove a few units from the equation, and then you're looking better. But Gaz then got into them. I think they'd have been good to shoot at least once, but maybe twice more without that. But obviously Gaz literally just killed them all in one go without even looking. And then I've got Gazgul literally in my back lines as well. At which point the game collapsed. Now I'd built up a decent lead, but it then sort of swung in those final two turns in the way that it often does, and I think it ended like 67-55.
Yeah, so not a whitewash by any means.
No, not at all. And it was, it was looking good, and because things like psychic interrogation weren't working for James because one lord was up in the sky and one lord was hiding, the sorcerer was hiding at the back. The knight's not actually a character, so he didn't really have targets for that. He had his banners up and was able to put more banners up later on. But yeah, it was a tricky one in terms of early scoring for James, but then luckily with this and with Gaz and the kill rig and some of his boys breaking through on the other side, he was able to take it home at the end. So it was an amazing game, really, really fun, very close game, very enjoyable game, and played in a really good spirit as well. One of those ones where there was just a lot of generosity, a lot of takebacks and adjustments and looking out for each other in terms of, did you mean to do this? It looks like you did, etc.
Yes,
all of that stuff. Great. And as far as sort of round one opponents goes, doesn't get much better than that. It's really, really nice. So
you need to settle into the event, don't you? Because you don't know how it goes either way sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a relief as well, because obviously I've come bringing Chaos Space Marines just because the internet has requested it. Mm-hmm. And you're very worried about how that will go, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could go in and get
am I just going to get completely destroyed? And as I said, last time I was on stream for Hellstorm at Goonhammer, I did score 35, I think.
Yeah. So what you've done is effectively doubled your effectiveness.
I got a bit more this time. Just double checking if that's I'm getting the score. I think that was, it was in that territory. So I certainly scored a lot better this time, which was good.
Anything you would do differently now, looking back, or is it just one of those games where
I definitely swing with the knight on the beast boss first, to make sure I got him down.
Yeah,
I think the Blitz. I think that play went.
That's just unfortunate. I mean, you shouldn't make a 10-inch charge. I think that play went
pretty well. I think there was a unit of Mega Knobs on an objective that I could have just double tapped with both rounds of Obliterator shooting, and then I would have actually destroyed them, and that would have been better for me in terms of scoring, and it would have meant that he had to send something back.
Yeah,
potentially. But no, I think I was relatively happy with how I played, how I went about the game, and I felt like I was playing the secondary game slightly sharply and was making his difficult, and that was all to the good. I think it's probably just letting the knight come to too much harm. Early on, and when you're losing half your wounds in a fight that you should be winning, that was the big cock up on my part, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Well, unfortunate for the stream. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch it, but I would have loved to have been able to see it.
It is on YouTube. It is on YouTube. I'm sure it'll be very funny to hear whatever Mikey and Tom Bremer had to say.
Have you not watched it back yet?
I haven't. Never watched what someone else has to say about you playing Warhammer.
Yeah, can't be good, can it?
There's no need. It's not good, is it?
Yeah. So you're 0-1, and you're thinking, from here, I'm going to get something a little bit more manageable for my Chaos Space Marines, right?
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
How did that go?
It didn't go great. I got Dark Harlequins in my list.
That feels like a really, really poor trade, doesn't it?
Yeah, that feels like the sort of the horrible game one in a way. Yeah. Dark Harlequins, but this was an interesting game and actually a really lovely game because I realised when I got to the table, this was a chap I actually knew. So it's a guy called Chris Wilde who has been at events locally before and who I'd chatted to a couple of times before back in the last couple of years. So I knew him, and he's a very lovely chap. And again, we had a very good spirited game. Now, this was one of those ones where we were playing Death and Zeal, and the Harlequins were on second turn, which I think is pretty fatal in this instance because it just means that they can control the game and play for the nice big sort of 12 swing at the end. And push you off stuff. And like my list at the best of times with 20 cultists worth of OBSEC isn't designed to prevent a push for the primary.
No.
So we had some interesting exchanges. He took Deadly Performance. He took Stranglehold. And he did drop Stranglehold a couple of times. I made Stranglehold difficult for him. We sort of traded back and forth over the middle, and I was sort of trying to shoot them off because obviously the problem Dark Harlequins give you is that if you go in to clear them off in melee, they'll kill you.
They clear you off,
yeah, which is a bit sad. And they really like 2-wound Terminators and anything like that they can just absolutely chew through. So I had to be quite cautious, keeping at arm's length with everything except the knight, which kind of ploughed its way up her side again and was quite happily getting
knights because
they don't like knights.
They're not good at.
No, exactly. And Chris was very sensible. Chris didn't even bother trying to take the knight on. Chris just let it do its thing. And the knight was basically firing Volkite and failing to get those 6s for mortal wounds all game. I desperately needed... I managed to line him up into a few squads here and there and get like 10 mans isolated, all these sorts of things where I just needed a couple of 6s and then that's whole squads just evaporated.
Instantly wiped,
But I couldn't get it. Couldn't get it on the gun. And it's a swingy gun. So that's it's not a gun you can rely on for that kind of output.
It's only weapon skill 3 or ballistic skill 3.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the Blitz, they were quite fun. They came in right on top of a building, so it was like even for Harlequins, they'd have to get up into the building and be all the way out the way to go and bother them. So they had a great view of all the objectives and were just firing down in a really annoying place.
Everything, yeah.
Well, that was it, and they were in a place where it's like he'd have to send a reasonable amount of stuff to go and get them. He had quite a few Void Weavers. The Void Weavers did a good stuff in this game. I wasn't convinced by
how many.
I think he had 3 or 4.
Okay,
which feels like probably the sweet spot.
Yeah,
I reckon 2 or 3 is probably enough. They do with the luck dice. That's the killer thing. They can hit really hard in pure Harlequins because if you have a turn where you're like, I'm going to invest 5 dice in making sure they hit and wound and damage that thing I want to kill. Even as much as I'm going to turn that 2 damage into a 5 damage. All those are the things that you can control with the luck dice, which are so powerful. They did get good work done, and they were a thorn in my side. So it was a good game. I scored nicely on Stranglehold. I took Assassinate, which I think was an error in this list because Chris played Keep Away with his elves, and I don't
think they need them as much as other.
No, they don't. They really
Drukhari,
don't.
for instance.
Yeah, exactly that. They don't do anything like as much heavy lifting in a Harlequins list. So this was probably a game where I needed R&D. And I think R&D actually, or even investigate sites would be, as I know Stuart uses with Death Guard, would be good in a proper CSM list with enough bodies to do it. So when I start fine tuning and working out what a pure Night Lords list looks like. That working out more game for that will definitely be something that I do next, I think.
I'll just think of Night Lords then. How many times so far has your leadership stacking come into this?
It hurt the Orks a lot.
Did it?
The Orks were running all over the place. Orks were losing stuff to morale all the time, and I was getting +1 to hit and the like against them. Now for the Harlequins, it can be big. It didn't line up to be big in this particular instance. The leadership stacking, I think it's very situational at the moment. And I think when Night Lords get updated, I believe they're adjusting them so that there will be other attendant bonuses.
You would hope, because that's not enough.
Yeah. But it was, it's an interesting thing. It's definitely relevant in a couple of places in the games that I play, but it's not game swinging. And as traits go, when you compare it to something like Fight First or other things that some armies have, it's nothing like as strong.
It feels very much an old 8th book now, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And even if that stays their mechanic, unless they change a lot about it, it's still going to be rubbish compared to some others. Because leadership is inherently not that useful in the game.
Yeah,
but it's very fluffy and it's great. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, completely. And so on this one, I mean, in terms of the game, we were both scoring nicely for direct assault, and that's where the mission helped. Because actually, Chris didn't really score. I kept him to 4 primary for rounds 2, round 3. And was doing what I could. Because again, I knew the 12 swing was coming, so I had to try and keep him down. But the problem with the nature of the mission was that direct assault literally stacks with Stranglehold, stacks with Deadly Performance. If you kill something off an objective, you're essentially getting 9 points a time. So it was very, very difficult to stop Chris getting a good score. Although I did manage to ensure that he didn't get to sort of swarm all over the place and do everything. But I think the flip side would be, I think Chris was fairly confident he was in control. Didn't put him in a sort of serious threatened situation. And so as it was, he kind of had a nice turn 5. Sort of caught up the scores and took it 85-74. So decent close game.
Relatively close game.
Yeah, decent close game. I had a turn where I failed to kill like 1 or 2 troops off an objective, which cost me 3 for Long War, 3 for Stranglehold, and 3 for Direct Assault. So that's a big moment, and also got him 4 primary. So that was probably the fatal moment in terms of the score, and that was just under allocation by me, not quite working. You know how it is with 4-ups when there's saves and rerolls and stuff, and
luck.
Exactly, that's it. And so I miscalculated there. Now I don't think the whole game rests on that, but there were a lot of points in terms of my own scoring. I look at that and I think that's the moment in the game where I, other than picking Assassinate, which is completely on me, and this, again, where I cost myself a load of points. That's the moment in the game where I dropped points.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so it's another game where I'm looking at, and that's a scary meta army, and I was in the game. I was definitely in the game, and I got a load of points. It wasn't like a 95-30 situation, which it can be.
No, that sounds good, and an army you know well as well, I guess, which helps.
Yeah, I like playing against elves, especially with not my elves. Because they don't know that I know that they know.
They don't know that we know they know we know.
No, exactly that. So that's quite enjoyable.
Yeah,
it's one. So and this was one where the knight was fun and smashed around and made trouble. Probably, again, as I think Chris was saying, if I had even just cheap CSM squads who could go and just clear stuff off, and if they get killed doing it, so be it, but they're at least taking out the assets, and as a 60-point unit of CSM with chain stores will still kill a Harlequin troop of 5 a lot of the time, and that's
even if
actually,
they don't kill them all,
although they take you with them, you're half their point, so it's not terrible.
I think 1 wound CSM, that's the future. Stay that way.
It's quite tempting, isn't it? To say, and this is I will dabble in a full 2k of Night Lords soon, and I think a couple of squads of just chainsaw lads in there to mix it up, and Raptors would be good to give you the sort of cheaper trading options.
So how did that one end? Remind me again.
85-74 to the Dark Harlequins.
Nice. So then now you're like, okay, well, I've lost 2 now. Game
Tyranids,
3.
No.
what am I going to get? How much worse can it get?
Exactly. I was kind of at that point. I was like, it seems like I should be due at least a not top army.
Yeah.
And I drew an army that I think is good, but is certainly not top, and that was Space Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And this was Space Wolves piloted by Jamie Dempster. Now, I played Jamie before, actually, at my first ever GT, which was a Hellstorm GT. And Jamie was running White Scars then, and I was running my Orthway, and we had a great game. This was back in the era of the Repulsor, and I remember he had a couple of Repulsors. And he paints in a lovely sort of military green on all his Space Marines. But these were converted space-like lions.
Very cool.
All the guys are riding lions, which is great.
That's much more intimidating if you ask me.
Yeah. Real cool. And so, I mean, this was a fairly straightforward game. We just really got stuck into each other. I'm just looking at the time and keen to make sure we sort of get on through. But I mean, Jamie's a lovely opponent. We went in, we crashed into each other. I think the thing that cost Jamie was he didn't have the Belt of Rust for Fight Last.
Yeah.
And we had the big turn that Space Wolves have where they crash into everything. And he crashed into my 10 Terminators with a bunch of guys and didn't have Fight Last. Killed like maybe one of them. They then interrupted and killed a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And that swung a flank in my favour. And then the knight, meanwhile, was just stood in the middle, not dying. And he didn't. It managed to get to its no hitting 1, 2s, and 3s, which obviously massively hurts Space Wolves because they're hitting on 2s and 3s with most of these lovely hammer weapons. Suddenly they go back to being swingy as hell. And I think that crucially for me, most of the battle was done before Savage Fury kicks in, and they get even more killy because this was successes with like double exploding 6s and all that jazz.
Oh yeah, I've played that.
Yeah, it can be very punchy. So in the end, Night Lords took that 90-81.
That's a really strong score.
Yeah, it was a decent score. Yeah. Good score. And what I was finding in all of these games is that Long War wasn't scoring quite as well as I had hoped it would. And this was another game where it didn't score as high. And I think the thing with Long War is that it works best in a trading situation.
Yeah.
And sometimes battles just don't take that pattern.
Don't go that way, yeah.
And if the battle doesn't take that pattern, then you're looking at 6s and 7s, not 9s, 12s, 15s.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a dangerous secondary in that sense. I'm finding.
Some armies you might sort of find you more likely to get into that kind of attritional war with than others.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Maybe, and I think it's going to be a case of working out what sorts of games you're going to get into that pattern in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one to ponder. So definitely the need to widen out the secondary game became clear in this. Although this was a great one for psychic interrogation because the knight literally just stood in the middle and read the minds of Space Wolves who had no deniers and couldn't do anything about it. And they were all angry melee characters, so they all had to just get closer and closer and closer, and they couldn't stop it happening. So that was fun.
That's maximum points there for that one. So that takes us to the end of day one.
That was the end of day one.
So you've got your win. You feel a little bit better about life at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I was chuffed with the games. I felt like good close matches.
Yeah.
And I don't mind losing in the sort of 15, 20 points bracket. I'm always content with that. So I hadn't been smashed. I'd managed to win a game. Sean and I then hit a pub where there was some very drunk and very merry Nottingham locals who befriended us, and we had a very nice evening. And then I came back well rested for day two.
And what was our start for day two?
We had Tau. I hit Tau.
Always a tough game.
Yeah, it is a tough game. But it's
one where... This is one where those shenanigans that we mentioned...
This is it.
Let's go into that.
This is where the way the Night Lords play, and certainly the way my list played, suddenly becomes quite interesting because... Oh, I forgot the Helldrakes. I've got 2 Helldrakes, guys. There are 2 Helldrakes in the list. The list does seem a bit light without 2 Helldrakes. They just harass and flap around and take flanks. With the Night Lords, we have come for you, which is a no fallback stratagem. So you can lock something. They can use on anything,
right? So some of them
infantry can lock infantry or anything non-vehicle. So super good. And so in this game, this was against Kenneth. And Kenneth will vouch for this. We both set up on the board, and it was very clear that if Kenneth went first, what was going to happen? He had lots of crisis teams. He had Devilfish with breaches in. I'm always, as soon as I see Devilfish and breaches, I'm worried. Because they let you play this quite expansive push out, get in your way.
Control version of Tau, which we're not used to seeing.
And basically the way you spend the whole game trying to kill some Croot Hounds and some breaches and some Devilfish, and then you're tabled, and then that's the end. And he had the stealth suits in a corner ready to drop down a crisis team. So if Kenneth had gone first, crisis team would have come down. He'd have probably picked up both the Helldrakes if he wanted, maybe the Knight. And then I'd have tried to do some stuff, and then I'd died. But Kenneth didn't go first. And so, as it was, I was able to warp time a bunch of warp talons into one of his crisis teams, which was one of his to the lasts. I killed maybe 1, maybe 2 suits, took the drones off, which at the time felt underwhelming. But I think what I've realised with the crisis suits is that you just have to start that process off as early as you can, and then the chance to actually realistically kill them presents itself later on, as it did in this game.
Even getting rid of one is quite a significant reduction in output.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, maybe your Terminators do it. Can the Terminators get through them in one bite?
Yeah.
Outrageous.
It's just so much AP too, isn't it?
So many shots. And so that was good, and the Helldrakes had flown over on the other side, and I'd sort of tied stuff up, and the Knight started wandering down through the middle. And we had a good old ding-dong of a game, and Kenneth was very sensible and tried to sort of get things in to put the pressure on my back lines. Commander jumped up, went down, started gunning down cultists. He was very unlucky not to kill the cultists. There were like 2 left in the building, otherwise I'd have lost that objective, and I wouldn't have had any way of realistically getting it back. I had to drop stuff back. Obliterators came down just to blow up a commander, because I was like, I just have to clean out this guy, get rid of him. And we were having a good exchange. I was locking suits in combat with warp talons or terminators or whatever got in there was locking stuff up. And the pivotal moment came when I charged my second pack of warp talons who'd come down into a different crisis team, and my Knight charged into a Devilfish and a crisis team as well. And I took that objective because Kenneth's list was light on obsec, and I'd killed the breaches. So the Knight was just stood on that, making it unholdable for Kenneth, who'd taken like the Tau Stranglehold, which you get 4 points for, but you can only score it in like the last 3 turns of the game. That's right, yeah.
It's worth noting, by the way, for people who don't play Chaos Space Marines, and Warp Talons in particular, thinking, how are all these Warp Talons getting in? Is that Warp Talons can't suffer Overwatch the turn they arrive from Deep Strike.
Yeah, it's super nice. It's super nice.
You'd expect to lose if you use the Tau otherwise. But.
Drop in, I've got a 3d6 with a Warp Talon or Raptor Squad charge. That's another stratagem that Night Lords have. They can't be Overwatched, so you can get past the +2, the -2 to charge that Tau could put on, because you've got the 3d6 re-rolling anyway, and you can get into action. And so then they just chew through about half the suit team, but then trap the rest and trap them with the Knight. So the knight's stuck and the warped hounds are stuck. I make it so he can't fall back. And then the knight again has finally arrived at 1, 2s, and 3s don't hit, no rerolls. And Kenneth is stuck in a very awkward situation where he can shoot the knight with a couple of crisis suits because they're next to it. And he can charge. He's got a couple of melee characters like Farsight and the sort of the flamer tooled up. He can charge them in. And he does that. But they whiff. They don't manage to kill the knight. And at that point,
obviously,
the primary swings big time. My game plan keeps on working. I've managed to get away with psychic interrogation every turn, and it ends up 84-60 to me. So we managed to take that. Yeah. And I think there's more than a bit of luck involved in that. That turn and the knight getting trapped in there is huge. But we do manage to take the game. And Kenneth was an absolute gent about it. So thank you, Kenneth.
Good work.
As I know that's not easy.
No. It's a really interesting one where your army is objectively not that strong. However, some of the mechanics that you've got make Tau a very hard game. Gives them a very hard game.
That's exactly right. No, that's exactly right. And indeed, when I was mucking around with Night Lords and doing the sort of mental brainstorming, I was like, Tau actually feels like one where they have to be very careful or they can definitely lose it.
Like you say, had he gone first, then there's every chance you're whittled to such a level straight away that it's...
I think 100% I lose. Because I was relying on some deep strikers as well, and I think he could have absolutely had me end in my own quarter.
Good. So that's 2 wins now. So you're 2-2.
Yeah. So at this stage, I start thinking maybe I can 4-2 it.
The dream is still alive.
Delusions of grandeur, and as you get a bit carried away, and you're like, "Oh goodness, I can do anything." Let's see what we hit next. And I hit Matt, who is running Goth Orks.
Okay, this is second round into Goths now.
Second round of Goths, and I already know from the first game that actually I'm finding Orks quite hard work, and it's a beautifully brutal list. Tons of Squighog boys, 2 of the Wazbon Blasters yet, Gazgul, smashy character, 20 commandos. It's all just lined up to just run at you and scream at you and ping you back and push you in all game. Again, I go first, which I did need to even be in this, but it's not an especially complicated game. I kill all the commandos, which I need to do. I take out one of the planes, and then I kill a load of Squighog boys, but I'm just overwhelmed. I don't have enough stuff to just realistically kill through all the stuff.
Into that,
No, exactly. So once my stuff's committed, Gazgul brutalizes a load of stuff. His bike character brutalizes. There's a bunch of killer cans. I kill a bunch of killer cans, and then the biker character, who in both games I played against him, just smashes Terminators. It's the competitive edge one where he just keeps trying until they're dead. Yeah, and he just loves Terminators, basically. He did it in both games. He picked up like 5 or 6 because that's just what he's wired to do.
Yeah.
And so, cracking game. This was the only one where I was like, I'm comfortably beaten, however, whatever I do here. I didn't really feel... I felt like a combination of the player and the list, I was just like, I don't see...
There's no way through this.
This. And Matt was a lovely guy, really sharp, smart player, and did a really nice job of just putting me away. So well done, mate. He was very nice to me as well. He bought me a drink afterwards because by the time of that time of an event, you're just a bit knackered. So I was just there, just sort of like it was mostly just tiredness, but I think it might have come off as being a little bit deflated. Don't worry, Matt, I wasn't deflated. I was just knackered, possibly regretting my choice to bring Night Lords, but who knows? So that was my game 5, and then to finish, I hit Tau again. And I played Seb, who was a really funny guy, had like a lovely dry sense of humour.
Yeah. That's what you need for your
and was painting game, we were both painting like a really vivid picture with this game, which was really fun. So there's a couple of stupid moments towards the end where we got really silly with it and we had a great time. Now, Seb, unfortunately, I think had been a few tables down when I beat Kenneth in the morning.
That's it. So
Seb was fully aware that my list can and would beat Tau. So he was very, very cautious, and he deployed well back, and he, very sensible in terms of all his to the last were. It was pretty much the same game plan as Kenneth. I think the way Tau play now is pretty set at the moment, and but all these crises are well behind screens. And what Seb had more of was Kroot hounds and drones, and he used these really, really well to just tease little units out and just chuck out a drone, chuck out some Kroot. And he had resources to play the whole 5 turns without ever having to put anything valuable
Yeah, that's great, isn't it?
Which is just good list design, good play. And
that's not what my list has got this weekend.
Mine doesn't have that. Mine is here comes some Helldrakes in a night.
Deal with it or not.
And deal with it. And so, I mean, it was a relatively close game, and because I think it finishes 78-71 to Seb.
Yeah, that's
and again,
close.
this is Seb's on going second for the final turn, and again, that's huge because he gets a big swing on both strategic scan and his getting his 12 at the end to take it. So it's one of those where the pattern of the game, he plays very cautiously, plays for that final turn and does very well doing that. And I'm trying to sort of knock him off balance early on and scoring well on Long War, Stranglehold, Interrogation, but losing just too much by way of resources.
Yes,
to hold out and do it long term. There's a brilliant moment in this game where I spy the opportunity. The knight's nearly dead. The knight takes an absolute pounding in this game, and it's nearly dead. And I spy an opportunity to trap a single drone.
I love this.
In combat with my Chaos Lord and the knight. So I kill through some Kroot and some Kroot hounds with both of them, and they sort of converge on this one drone, which I then trap with We Have Come For You. So we're joking, like, what drone is so important that the whole Tau army are like, no, stop, nobody shoot, leave it, don't do it. That's the most important drone we've ever made.
I love that so much.
And then what Seb had, so Seb was joking about this, it was really funny. And then Seb sends Farsight in to kill the knight, which is exactly what happened in the game with Kenneth, right? Farsight goes in to try and kill the knight, and Farsight failed. So I'm like, oh, maybe there's a chance. But this time, sadly, Farsight gets it done, and Farsight doesn't whiff and punches the knight to the ground, and that's when any chance of sort of holding out and winning the game evaporates.
You consider spending your CP to auto explode at that point?
Didn't have any left.
No, okay.
CP, big issue with this list, and that I think is the big thing with the CSM book in the 8th form. You can do these amazing things, but it all costs so much CP.
Yeah.
And in my list, where I've already spent 3 CP to bring a big glory piece, you're already down. I think if I was writing as a Night Lords list again, it would be 12 CP every time, just ready to do stuff with. And so I lose that one 78-71. But again, fantastic game and really close. And it was, as I said, it was fun. Seb was definitely very afraid of the Night Lords and treated them with respect, which was
absolutely
good to
see. Right. Yeah. But overall, good event. Enjoyed yourself?
Oh, amazing! Yeah, I had 5 excellent games with really, really lovely people, where every game was within a sort of 15-point margin, pretty much, except the Coastal where Matt absolutely smashed me in. Although I did manage to get some points, I was smashed. There's no bones about it. I was absolutely binned in that game from about turn 2. So that was awesome, and there was nothing. I think we can sort of segue into our off meta, on meta conversation here, I guess, because this is an off meta list, right? This is a weird list to take. Yeah. It's a weird decision to make, and so I was thinking afterwards, like, what the sort of pros and cons of that were, and what was good about it, what was bad about it. And one of the things that was good about it is when you're running something weird, there is no pressure at all.
No, I find that it's a huge benefit to me.
And that is great.
You don't ever expect to do well, so it frees you up. And then sort of takes off, as you say, that pressure to perform.
No, that's exactly it. And so having had a season where
you kind of been expected to perform for so long.
There was Drakari for ages, where it was like you're expected to do well. And actually, it took me a long time to learn how to play Drakari properly. I hadn't been playing them all that long, and I was still figuring them out. And actually, I wasn't the first few events. I wasn't. And indeed, the Goonhammer I went to before, I think I was either 2 and 3, 3 and 2 with that at that time, and that was like peak Drakari.
Yeah.
It's not massively better in terms of overall outcome. And so, but the expectation was much bigger.
Yes.
So with this, I knew I wasn't going there to win the event.
Yeah. And how did that feel going in, probably expecting to do badly?
It was good, actually. No, I liked it. I was quite content with it. And we're well versed enough to know what the stats on this are, and I knew realistically
your expectations were realistic.
Realistically, a couple of wins was what was possible.
Yeah,
I honestly do feel like three wins was certainly feasible of the games that I had.
You've run into some good armies, though. You haven't run into 11.
No, exactly that. I didn't play a single like really bad list, but it's Goonhammer. I think Goonhammer attracts good
it's a caliber
crowd.
of player.
Because it's a competitive site. They are the competitive site, aren't they? Like people aren't drawn to it for no reason. So yeah, and that was nice. It was nice, but I think Armour of Contempt goes a long way in that sense. It definitely did help. Armour of Contempt definitely made a difference. Stuff was tougher.
Oh, that's good. Makes me feel better.
And so that was a real plus, and I did enjoy that, and it was fun.
Yes,
and it was fun to pull out the tricks and to watch people's faces when you get 5 more hits than you've started with.
Yeah, I think this again. Then I think that's the other, or one of the other big pros of running an off-meta list is that. Firstly, it's unpredictable because people don't know what it does. Yeah. And also, it's got all these random things that people have never even heard of before. So
totally agree.
If you're going, you already said it a minute ago, if you're playing against Tau, you kind of know how they're going to play. You go into Space Wolves, you kind of know how they're going to play. If you come into this list that you've run there,
they don't know.
No idea at all. Like, what on earth is that?
Exactly
What's that knight for? Like, I don't understand. Yeah. So you catch people off guard both in terms of strategy and also the things you can do in the game as well that sort of like your stratagems and your relics and all that weird stuff as well. Yeah,
completely. And there's a case of you have a more complete picture of the game than they do, don't you? You know, let's assume in this you're well versed in what other armies do, as you and I both are, right? So we both know what Tau do. We know what Dark Harlequins do. We know how those armies play and what they want to do. And there is a very real strength in being the one that knows what both armies are trying to do. Right?
I know what you want to do, and I know what I want to do, but you don't know what I want to do. And I remember
having this with Drakari, where I'd go to events and you'd come up against people who've been thinking about nothing else but how to absolutely destroy you.
Yeah. I guess you quickly turn to one of the cons of being an on-meta army. People are gunning for you.
And they really are. They really, really are. And, I'm sure Chris will have found this with the Dark Harlequins, them. The top players and top builds will have a plan for you.
Yes.
It's fair to say people don't have a plan for Night Lord.
and
so every now and again there's the little tricks, with the no fallback, with the sort of nice delivery out of turn off auras. Oh, that in the Space Wars game turned off Rights of War in the middle, which is like that's a big moment.
Yeah,
that's a big moment. No Rights of War completely swings how that list is planning to play because he was. Almost everything came forward because he was quite happy to leave stuff light at the back. And he was like, well, Rights of War basically locks the whole middle down and then I just roll on to victory. But turn off Rights of War and get the knight on it. And then you're like, oh, now that's mine. So, yeah. So it was nice. And Night Lords did combo quite well with the Abominate in that way because, the leadership debuffing was nice with the Terror Shades. And
I love the Terror Shades.
Switching off Obsec is good. So, it was cool.
Very nice.
But in terms of off meta or on meta, I think that's one of the big ones, right? If you're on meta, everyone's gunning for you. If you're off meta, you will often have a more complete picture of the game. You can catch people off guard.
Yeah.
Playing without pressure is really nice. Although the flip side, and this is where I think it's such a two-sided thing. Playing with pressure is good as well. If you want to get better.
Yeah.
Playing one of the things that happened when I was running on meta stuff, so Drakari stuff, is I played the scariest people in the scariest lists at every event I went to. Right, I played your Mannies, I played your Cromwell Holmes. I started meeting all of these people whose names I would see up in rankings of things, but I didn't ever play them. And suddenly, when I was playing those kinds of armies, I was playing. And there's something good in that. If you want to get better, you've got to play the best people and you've got to play the best lists.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And playing Night Lords on lower tables, I had to play well to be in the games.
Yeah.
So that you do learn in that sense. You have to really try. You aren't necessarily learning as many tips and tricks and sort of shenanigans off those you're playing, though, right? You're not necessarily
you're learning better how the mechanics of how you can interact with the mechanics of the game.
That's exactly right.
I found
it's kind of resource management. You're learning a lot because you have to manage those resources so well with a bad army. And I have this to extent. Sorry,
after you.
No, after you.
When I was playing my Bellicor list, I had a similar learning experience that the army wasn't that good. I mean, it functions and it's actually doing okay out there. But what I found was it was a completely different way of playing the game in that I couldn't interact with things.
No.
I had 2-3 units that could actually do damage, and the rest was better at standing in a place than you are, and that's kind of how it works. So again, it's just learning the mechanics of an off meta. But people again don't know how to play into that because that is something that people don't do.
No.
They don't just stand near you for no reason and just say, okay, when your turn you can kill me, because most armies are so obsessed with killing you that, again, it forces a weird behaviour in people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I think that's definitely a nice side of it. And that's the benefit. And the thing with on meta as well is that you can often more readily score more simply with armies.
Yeah, I mean, they are easier, aren't they?
A lot of good armies. Good armies have great secondaries.
Yeah,
they have they have a game plan where they're going to be able to rack up 15 on something somewhere.
Yeah, and then the rest is just fill them.
To an extent, you're playing 9th edition the way it's meant to be played when you're playing a good on meta army as well. Like if you take your 1,000 Suns and you do the right things with 1,000 Suns, there's a game plan there.
You should at least get 30 points in your secondaries if you're doing well.
Yeah. And there is a point at which you don't want to be like willfully handicapping yourself all the time.
No,
I think it's nice to try both, right? It's good to sample both and to mix it up. But at the same time, I think the idea that, you must make it difficult for yourself to ever get better.
It's just martyrdom, isn't it?
That's not true either, right? That's putting a sort of glamorous spin on willfully underachieving as well. So you kind of need to see both those things as they are. But as I say, I think the plus side of playing down on those tables and down at those levels is that there were no horror shows. It was nice to have no horror shows. There were no 90-30s, this is sad for everyone involved, which I think with playing light Harlequins, that when they were in there.
That was happening,
There was just 4 games at an event. 4 of the games were just this is pointless. Fundamentally pointless for me, fundamentally pointless for you. And none of the games felt pointless. No. And that was nice.
And I think that there's probably an added element of that is when you are at that level, you're probably finding you're coming into players who are there for a bit more of a good time. You might
100%.
100%.
There was literally no dispute or concern or second guessing or questioning about anything.
Which is great, isn't it? I would love it.
The only attitude was positive. And so it's so again, Matt, I'm losing badly against Matt. And it's I can't remember if it was turn 2 or turn 3, but I was I suddenly know we've gone into his shooting, and suddenly I was like, oh, you had Storm Boys, Matt. Where are your Storm Boys? We need to get your Storm Boys back out and get them down because they're supposed to be here by now and they're not here. And it's shit like that where it's this is all... It was just nice. It was all very nice, all very positive. And it wasn't that my opponents weren't playing to win. My opponents all played good games and played,
you can be both. I think
brought a good game and had a good go, but they were all super friendly. And there just wasn't that undercurrent, I think, of there's something riding on this.
Yeah, I have to win.
I don't think any of my opponents at any stage, both a combination of when I played different people with what they were running, meant none of us were there's a podium or something on the line. There was no reason for it to get uglier or get tense.
No.
And that was nice. Because it's a social game.
It's meant to be, first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
One of the double-edged swords I was going to point out for pros and cons, one of the pros of having a really popular army is that a lot of people have done the research for you already.
Yes.
You can look up the net list. You can go on to websites like Goonhammer, and you can objectively find out in a vacuum 100%. What actually is objectively good. Now, it might not be what's good for you, but someone will analyse the maths on things. Someone will do sort of the different list builds that that are synergistic, and then which is great, especially if you're a new player. Downside to that is it's kind of dull, and it does kind of hamper you as a player because you're not then exercising that way of thinking.
100%. I think that's exactly right, and I think those are the two ins and outs of it. One, there's nothing wrong with benefiting from all that knowledge that other people have, and actually, all the best players will tell you, "I'm good because the people around me are good." Right?
Yeah.
I'm in good WhatsApps. I have a good team. I have a good club. Whatever else, and good players help make each other better. And if you're playing a good army, there's a bigger pool for that. So I'm in a sort of Eldari chat. There's an Eldari chat on Facebook full of all the people you'd expect, and I've learned a lot eyeballing into that. What I have learned is I'm not bothered about playing Craftforge. There's just not for me right now. Yeah. They don't do what I like. They're a bunch of cowards, but not the cowards. I like cowards that stab people.
Yeah, not cowards that hide behind.
Not cowards that shoot
guns.
Yeah. But again, you learn so much from those people. But I think, and this is something we've talked about before, but I think 40k for many of us is a creative exercise.
Oh yeah.
And if a book's solved, then you don't feel like you're creating in quite the same way.
Yeah.
And so that was nice with this. It was nice to feel like, well, there's not there isn't a template for this. There isn't something I must do. There isn't a set of units I must have.
Yeah, which a lot of armies.
And again, it's nice to feel like the iterations I will now make from this, because I'll write some more Night Lords lists and keep painting them. Probably not at the rate I just had to paint them to get them on the table for this, but I will keep painting them. And it's nice to be thinking, what did I lack? What do I need to play these well? So there's lots to be said for it, and I think those are the main things. And I think the truth is that you can and should do both. I think you should try both. You should absolutely run good armies.
It's a different game, isn't it, really?
Yeah, you should absolutely run a good army. The way I always think of it is, if you ever start thinking you're really good at this game, take Night Lords to an event.
Yeah. It's humbling.
Because what you'll learn is, you might be good, but it's a deeply imbalanced game in which there's a lot of other factors involved. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you slightly change that up, and actually, I think what some players do is they never actually pick a fair fight ever again, right? They get on that train.
I will take my Dark Harlequins from now on.
That's it. They have a good time, and they win when the dice are all loaded in their favour, and then they realise that the only way to keep achieving those results is to never
keep having the best army. Yeah,
never get off that bus. And if you look at top players, they never get off that bus. Most, you get a handful of lifelong devotees of factions, but
not many that get right to the top.
Most of them now are just trapped in only ever playing essentially what's new, and what's undercosted. That's what it boils down to, isn't it?
It's how quickly can you quick shade an entire army?
Yeah, and that's an exhausting train to be on, I think. And so I think for your average player, the realistic thing to expect is at some point what you play will be great. Play the shit out of it when it is, and have some fun with the stuff you love when it's not as good. Yeah. And you'll learn different things and benefit in different ways from both, without completely exhausting yourself.
That's a very nice philosophical end to this.
Yeah, a suitable end. I think that was a lovely chat, Lee. Very nice to speak with you. And our dear leader has hopefully won a convincing triumph against the Grey Knights wherever he is right now. We'll check in with him and the rest of the team for our next episode. We've got exciting things in the works as well. We have Skari on board to talk Drukhari with us.
Yes, for our next
in the nearest future. So it'll be probably a few weeks yet, because I know he's moving house at the moment. So he said that we'll pick things up again. Yeah, but that'll be our next
finally gets on Drukhari,
which I'm fucking excited for. Well, exactly that. And I have to decide. Now I've got a Wickham event end of June, and I have to decide. And now a tiny bit of he's going, do you just take the next iteration of Night Lord?
Put it on the poll.
Try again. Try again.
Just let the internet vote.
Maybe not, or maybe take the Drukhari. I'll ponder that one. But anyway,
I've got Saffron this weekend, which I'm excited about.
It's Saffron this. Well, you're going to win it, Lee.
So shout out quickly, because we got Saffron this weekend. The YouTube community thinks I'm going to do the best of the three of us.
Yes, it does.
Which is over. When I checked, it was 16 votes. That's actually fairly.
That's a substantial number of people think you're the best. I'm among them. I do think you're the best. I think you deserve nice things.
Oh, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. So I'm going. Jamie's going, and and Chris is going. We actually got our first round pairings today. So we've sort of been looking at those. I've drawn Tau, which will be really interesting. It's really not a typical Tau list in any way. It's lots and lots of bodies. I think it's more designed to deal with things like Tyranids, lots of Flamers, lots of Croup, and the crisis there is more high volume than it is heavy hitting.
Interesting.
It looks like a fun list. I mean, I don't know the guy. More of a collection of things that maybe he owns. But assembled in what looks to be a clever way. So I'll have to see how that works. I mean, it's one of those where it's like a Naden style list that it probably all functions in a way that I just can't see because I don't know the army that well.
But as you say, if it's designed for a particular threat,
I'm very much the opposite, because I've got 3 giant durable threats. Whereas that looks like it's more designed to take on those little bugs or something like that. Jamie drew Grey Knights, a very good Grey Knights player. Almost identical lists, I think. So that'll be really interesting. And Chris, did he get? Can't remember what he got now. He got
Chris
Drukhari,
has Drukhari Queens. Yeah. Drukhari Queens. So it's Twilight Harlequins, which I love to see, and Witch Cults and various things. It's an interesting list. We'll
see how that goes. I am really looking forward to it. It's been a while since I've had an event. I think Scrivo Slam was the last one.
This is your first big boy event in a while.
First in ages.
I back you. Go and get the gold. Go on. Otherwise, Chris don't want Chris defending his title. We can't have that.
I mean, if I had to have someone other than me or Jamie win, it could be Chris, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
But yeah, there's a lot of Tyranids there. It's something like 7 or 8 Tyranid players
out
of
really?
24.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So it feels likely they're probably going to do it, but we'll do our best.
I believe. Wonderful. Well, we've been the Plus. We've had a great time. We will sign off now, and we will see you all again next time. Bye bye.
Cheers, everybody.
Ave Dominus Nox.